Rare photos. A man kisses his girlfriend goodbye after being sentenced to life imprisonment in 2002. A mother hiding her face as she puts her children on sale in Chicago, 1948. The lower dungeon of Warwick Castle, a part of the prison where prisoners were dropped and forgotten about. Leprosy patients in China in the 1890s. The horrifying case of Lacey Fletcher, the woman who was found dead after melting onto her couch. World's first heartless human able to live without a pulse. This is Ella Williams, who was the world's tallest woman in the late 1800s. This is what the inside of a leatherback turtle's throat looks like. Father Christmas wearing a tin helmet while delivering presents during the London Blitz in December 1940. This is Tony Signorini, a man who walked the beaches of Florida at night in 30-pound three-toed lead shoes in 1948. This is the house mace, the official weapon used to beat members of U.S. Congress. Nikola Tesla's last message to his mother before he died was, "All these years that I had spent in the service of mankind brought me nothing but insults and humiliation." Woman smiling after being sentenced to 20 years of hard labor in a prison camp by the South Vietnamese government. After being sentenced, she smiled at the judge and said, "20 years? Your government won't last that long." This is the border between Canada and the United States. It's literally just a clear-cut line in the forest. In January 2007, Russian President Vladimir Putin brought his Labrador into a meeting with the German Chancellor, who is known to be scared of dogs. In April 2021, nurses filled gloves with hot water to hold the hands of dying patients. They were isolated from family and real people because of hospital protocols. A Florida judge puts on a MetaQuest 2 to experience the crime in first person. The last moments of a man who jumped inside of a tiger enclosure in 2014. 26-year-old model Anna Nicole Smith and her husband, 89-year-old billionaire oil magnate J. Howard Marshall II, exhausted and cold German soldiers surrendered to Russian troops outside of Moscow in 1941. After the tragic events of 9/11, the Maasai people located in a small Kenyan village gave 14 cows to support the United States. This building was the former headquarters of the MI6 until it was discovered to be irredeemably insecure after auditors realized the building was made largely of glass and had a gas station at its base. In 1974, Egyptian officials issued a passport to the pharaoh Ramesses II so it could get into France. A fawn curled up beside a fake deer that was used for target practice. This skilled photographer created a playful series of him stealing the actual moon. In 1977, Bill Gates was arrested for a traffic violation. The outline of his mugshot would go on to be used as a default profile pic for Outlook. Ethan Zuckerman, the man who invented pop-up ads, apologized to the world for unintentionally creating one of the internet's most hated forms of advertising. This is the first nuclear test after World War II at Bikini Atoll. In 1946, a mother shows what 7 months of heroin and meth addiction did to her son. U.S. soldiers in 1900 pose in front of the grizzly giant, a sequoia in Yosemite. The tree is still there today. A couple dividing up their Beanie Baby collection in divorce court in the 1990s. This woman stole 5 eggs to feed her kids. Instead of arresting her, the police officer, William Stacy, brought her a truckload of groceries. An old beer bottle was used as an anvil to smash open countless snails by countless birds. The bottle has been used by the birds for more than half a century now. This Russian stadium didn't meet FIFA's regulation on capacity, so they added 18,000 seats in the most terrifying way possible. This man is part of the Aquamen, a French theater group known for wandering around with fish bowls on their heads containing live fish. This is a Mongolian woman who is condemned to die of starvation for adultery, reaching out through the porthole of the crate where she is imprisoned in July 1913. This is Chris Espinosa, who is currently the longest-serving employee at Apple. He joined the company in 1976 at the age of 14, writing basic code while the company was still based in Steve Jobs' garage. In 2012, French beekeepers could not solve the mystery of the blue and green colored honey in their beehives until they discovered that the bees were visiting a local M&M factory. This is the first Coca-Cola bottle sold to the public, launched in 1894. Surprisingly, it contained approximately 3.5 grams of cocaine at the time. This woman submerged 5 sets of her fine china underwater before evacuating due to fires in Northern California in 2018. This photo shows Bonnie Heim with her young son shortly before she vanished in 1993. At the time, her 3-year-old son claimed that his dad had killed her, but there was no evidence to support his story. 20 years later, while renovating their home, the son dug up his mother's remains in the backyard. Every child's jaw is packed with teeth, but we don't think about them until they start to erupt in the gums. This is Apple founder Steve Jobs testing the photo booth filters in 2005. Prostitutes for sale behind bars in a brothel in Japan, 1890. Security kicks Travis Scott out of his own concert without recognizing him in Moscow, 2014. This man lost part of his skull after consuming excessive amounts of energy drinks. He suffered a brain hemorrhage, which led to strokes, seizures, and swelling of the brain. An incredible reconstruction of this girl's face after a horrendous burn. This man was discovered to be unknowingly missing 90% of his brain, yet he was completely fine and living a normal life. President Obama taking taking a photo with a kid who fell asleep during an event at the White House. The moment this jogger realized he stumbled into these people's engagement photo, in 2001, a man who was wrongly imprisoned for 18 years for murder was finally freed after his high school dropout sister went to law school to prove his innocence. Ukrainian President Viktor Yushchenko, before and after he survived attempted assassination from Russia. This is a body scan of a woman at 250 pounds and 125 pounds. This watch, discovered in the rubble of Hiroshima, stopped right at 8:15, the exact moment the atomic bomb detonated in 1945. A wolf that lived for years with a tree branch trapped between his teeth. The creation of the recycling logo by G. Anderson in 1970. He was 23 at the time. An intact human nervous system dissected by two medical students in 1925. It took them over 1,500 hours to do this, and there are only 4 of these in the world. This 2-milligram dose of fentanyl is enough to kill most people. A photo of the exact time lightning hits the water. This is the largest skull that's ever been discovered. This is Hans-Georg Henke, a 16-year-old anti-aircraft soldier of the Hitler Youth, crying from combat shock as his world falls apart. He was later captured by the U.S. Ninth Army in Hessen. 28-year-old Jenny Joseph, posing for the Columbia Pictures logo in 1992. Backshot cave painting in Algeria, dated to around 7 to 2,000 years before Christ. Saddam Hussein captured by the United States military in December 2003. This is Point Nemo, the spot farthest away from any land in the world. You are closer to astronauts aboard the ISS than humanity. This is what happens to a hand at cold temperature with the rare condition cutis marmorata. These are the remains of the astronaut Vladimir Komarov, a man who fell from space in 1967. A woman dwarfed by the towering presence of an enormous redwood tree in 1950. A human zoo in Belgium, 1958. This is the biggest horse that ever lived. He's a Shire horse named Samson, born in England in 1846. At his peak, he was over 7 feet tall. A behind-the-scenes photo from the making of the first Godzilla movie in 1954. A photographer has captured the incredible moment when an eel escaped from a heron's stomach while the bird was still in flight. This is a billboard in Harrison, Arkansas, widely considered the most racist town in the United States. Michael Jackson throwing up a gang sign with the Crips. Someone's eye after Hiroshima bomb with an atomic bomb cataract. Man kayaked solo across the Atlantic Ocean 3 times, most recently in 2017 at the age of 70. He died in 2021 while climbing Kilimanjaro. After reaching the top, he asked for a 2-minute break before posing for photo. He then sat down on a rock and just fell asleep. A dementia patient drew himself until he could no longer recognize himself. This is the world's loneliest house located on Elliday Island in Iceland. These are babies left to sleep outside to enforce their immune system in Moscow, 1958. Stripper in Florida showing the judge that her bikini briefs were too large to expose her bottom to the undercover cops that arrested her in 1983. The case was dismissed. In 1948, George McLaurin was the first black man admitted to the University of Oklahoma. He was forced to sit in a corner far from white classmates. This is a microscopic Louis Vuitton handbag that's the size of a grain of salt. This Japanese man lost his wife in an earthquake 10 years ago, but has not stopped looking for her body. He has dived more than 800 times into the ocean in an attempt to retrieve her. A Florida metal musician turns his uncle's skeleton into an actual working guitar. The Avengers, a group of Holocaust survivors who plotted to kill 6 million Germans in revenge. Freshly excavated 2,000-year-old terracotta warriors photographed in 1974, still showing the original color scheme before rapid deterioration. Scientists have discovered a black fungus inside Chernobyl, feeding on deadly gamma radiation. The photo that changed the face of the AIDS pandemic, a father comforting his dying son. The Russian sleep experiment photo is originally a statue from Morbid Enterprises. The door to the kitchen of this monastery was intentionally narrow so that fat monks had to go on a diet. This is a body riddled with parasites as a result of eating raw pork for 10 years. Charles Bronson in 2001, the man dubbed as the most violent prisoner in Britain. Bugs attempting to escape a flood. FBI agent Robert Hansen, tasked with finding a mole in the FBI, was himself the mole, secretly working with the KGB since 1979, later described as the worst intelligence disaster in U.S. history. This is a peanut that's stuck inside a later dead child's trachea. This is photographer Charles Ebbets taking the famous photo of construction workers having lunch on the unfinished Empire State Building. This is a wavy brick fence you sometimes see in England, and this shape uses less bricks than a straight wall. A straight wall needs at least 2 layers of bricks to make it sturdy, but the wavy wall is fine thanks to the arch support provided by the waves. In 2018, 16-year-old Kyle Plush tragically passed away after becoming trapped by the seat in his minivan. Despite making multiple 911 calls, he wasn't found until his family used the Find My iPhone app to locate him.